in and talk how we can get ready pre and post election, how we can think about disasters and crises, um, and deal with them as a region. My name is Nina Morgan. I'm a member of the Southern Movement Assembly leadership team, and I'm also an organizing fellow with Project South, gang, gang. And we will get started 5 minutes after the hour. So we're going to get started at 6:35 Eastern. So we welcome you to get settled into the Zoom space, enjoy this music by Bob Marley, and let us know who you are by answering our check-in question via chat. Please share your name, your pronouns, your organization, the state that you're representing, and a question: what is one way that your community is getting ready for whatever happens, regardless of the election results next week? So welcome y'all, and we'll get started shortly.
Buenas tardes, bienvenidos al espacio. Mi nombre es Nina Morgan. Esta es la llamada mensual de Southern, de SMA. Entonces, esta noche vamos a enfocar en nuestro grupo que se llama Get Ready. Es un grupo de trabajo que estamos organizando antes de las elecciones y también seguimos el trabajo después de las elecciones. Otra vez, mi nombre es Nina Morgan y yo soy miembro de Asamblea del Movimiento del Sur y yo soy parte del equipo de liderazgo y también estoy trabajando para el Project South. Vamos a comenzar a las 6:35 hora del este y les damos bienvenidos a este espacio otra vez. Ojalá que aprovechen de esa música de Bob Marley. Antes de comenzar, pedimos que ustedes se presentan en la caja de comunicación con su nombre, su pronombre, su organización, el estado y también que contesta qué ustedes están haciendo para organizarse y alistarse para las elecciones y después de las elecciones, que sean los resultados que van a hacer para contestar y prepararse. Gracias y que disfrutan de esta música.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Before we jump into the call tonight, I just want to acknowledge and thank our language justice team for interpreting tonight's call. Please make note of the interpretation information in the chat, and I'll pass it over to our interpretation team for more information. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Antes de comenzar, queremos reconocer y agradecer a nuestro equipo de justicia lingüística para interpretar la llamada de esta noche. Eh, También ellos van a compartir información acerca de cómo acceder a canal de interpretación. Esta reunión será en inglés y español y habrá interpretación simultánea de inglés y español y también inglés y las señas norteamericanas. Para usar la función de interpretación para escuchar el inglés y español, por favor, si están usando una computadora, busca el globito que está en la parte inferior de su pantalla y elige su idioma o inglés o español. Si usted está conectando a través de una tableta o un teléfono móvil, por favor busca más o los tres puntitos, haga clic en interpretación de idiomas y elige su idioma preferido o inglés o español. No olvides de darle listo o finalizar o done para activar la función. Shortly, in a few moments, you will see a globe at the bottom of your screen in Zoom. This meeting will have English, Spanish, and American Sign Language with simultaneous interpretation. To use the interpretation function to hear English or Spanish, if you're using a computer, look for the globe at the bottom of your screen and select language interpretation and choose either English or Spanish. If you're using a smartphone, click More or the three dots. Then you will select language interpretation and choose either English or Spanish. Please don't forget to select Done once you have made your selection for the interpreting function to be activated. And you should see the globe appearing shortly on the bottom of your screen, and we'll hand it back to the facilitators.
Thank you so much. Big up and appreciation to our language justice crew for interpreting tonight's call. That's Coco, Language Advocacy and Consulting. Look them up. And once again, good evening, y'all. I am seeing a lot of familiar faces, a lot of familiar names. We're over 70 people and rising, and that's exciting. My name is Nina Morgan. Once again, I use she, they pronouns. I'm a movement organizing fellow with Project South and also part of the Southern Movement Assembly's leadership team. And I'll be one of your facilitators this evening. So definitely welcome you all to continue to engage in the chat, share your name, share your pronouns, share your location, your organization if you have one. And how are you getting ready? How are you thinking about the elections? How are you getting ready around the elections with community? And also please note some other logistics information about this call that will be dropped in the chat shortly, just so we can make sure that we're all hearing from each other, respecting each other. And if you need support, definitely ask. We have people on to support making this call happen. Enough gratitude. So briefly, I just want to name and remind us. Well, first and foremost, who all just put it in the chat or give me an emoji if you were present at Southern Movement Assembly 11, which was held in Little Rock, Arkansas at the end of September. Let me know who was present with us in Little Rock. Okay, Nikki, Michelle. Okay, I'm seeing some emojis. Well, yeah, just if you need a reminder, recap, or if you weren't throwing down with us, 25 delegations came representing 25 frontline and community assemblies across the South, y'all, from every state across the South. Over 75 freedom fighters communed with each other. We assessed, right, the political landscape that we are looking at, that we are dealing with, that our communities are dealing with. And also we talked through a game plan for 2025 and beyond, right? We bringing all of the information about our work, our communities, and assessment into the conversation. And we landed on and agreed on the need to collectivize and come together before and after this election to really engage in disaster preparation and response and really organize and gather our folks. And so that is what the focus of tonight's conversation will be on. And we also committed, right? We committed to coming back, returning to a synthesis and a regional Southern really action plan for freedom 2025 and beyond. So that we'll return to that in December. The synthesis has already been shared, right? What is a synthesis? It is a coming together, a bringing together of all of the things we brought during SMA 11 to inform an action plan, right? And so all of that we're going to return to now as part of the call and in December. And the way that we're going to kick that off is talking about the Get Ready Task Force. And so to open us up and get into it, I want to pass it to Shafia just to provide a political framing. And then we'll pass it on to Suzanne Farr, who's going to talk a little bit more about the Get Ready Task Force and the time, this moment that we're in ahead of the elections next week. So Shafia, I'm going to toss it over to you to just ground us in this political moment.
Oh, thank you, Nina. Again, welcome to the Southern Movement Assembly's monthly State of the South call. My name is Shafia Mbalia. I am a Black Workers for Justice representative on the governance team of the Southern Movement Assembly. It is about 33 days after 2 hurricanes tore across the South. It's about 13 months of genocidal slaughter of Palestinians, 44 months since January 6, 66 months since the beginning of the pandemic that changed our lives, and 1 week before the most contentious and significant U.S. national election in many generations. The South is the soil soaked by the blood of the enslavement and genocide of the indigenous peoples, and the super exploitation, terror, then political suppression and stealing of land of Black people, now including many Latino and many other workers. Today, the South continues this history with most of the worst and least of the best health, education, worker laws, and standards in the so-called developed world. And this is why Amazon and the auto industry and many manufacturers are moving back into our region, why the U.S. uses this as a base for military and financial centers. And many of us don't know that. Where these last few days before these U.S. national elections, city, council, state elected officials and judges in states like Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Texas manipulate law to the advantage of the most backward, racist, misogynist, homophobic right-wing movement, again, birthed and still anchored in the Southern soil and connects to other fascist movements rising in Europe and around the world. It is also where the trials of Breonna Taylor's murderers are still taking place, where indictments and manipulation of law to force Cop City on Atlanta is taking place and have been, and spreading around to the rest of the country, where the trials of the Florida activists for exercising free speech against U.S. foreign policy has happened with indictments and convictions, where suppression and repression of pro-Palestinian students, teachers, staff in Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and elsewhere is heightened, where there are purges of thousands of names off the Virginia, Georgia, North Carolina voter rolls, where women have been allowed to die for lack of health care, and there are mass assaults against women in the ICE detention centers. And courts are forcing one religion over others or none in violation of their own laws. And there's even been attacks on hurricane aid workers and power line workers in North Carolina working to save people because of the disinformation and misinformation that's being sent. And where regardless of who wins the election, we know that there will be increased misinformation and disinformation, and there will be confusion sown to divide and to intimidate our peoples and communities across the South, where the threats and the rumors of threats have already been circulating and changing and damaging people's lives. But we also know that it is the home of the 50s and the 1960s mass organizing and mass action by Black people across the South against white supremacist terrorism and laws. and for power and self-determination. We remember it is the home of the environmental justice movement birthed out of Eastern North Carolina in the 80s. We remember the struggles around the Jenna 6, Trayvon Martin, reigniting the Black liberation movement here in the South. We know that there's also an upsurge in labor organizing across the South, in Amazon, the auto industry, and other industries contending for the working conditions and building solidarity. That is going on now. We know that there are mutual aid centers spreading across the South, and at least 30 assemblies, workers' assemblies, community assemblies, organizing locally, working to build, to contend for power. That is going on now. So we know that there is contention. We ain't just laying down. But for the most part, we are isolated from each other. Not knowing what's happening down the road is daggone near the same thing that we are contending with in our own communities, neighborhoods, and jobs. So tonight, we're concentrating on a strategy that we're calling Get Ready. Approximately 25 delegations, as Nina has mentioned, across the South, convened in the 11th Southern Movement Assembly, which was birthed out of the disaster of Katrina, responding to an assessment of what's taking place across the South, just as we have just mentioned, on how do we help those folks, our folks, groups on the ground, you, in your neighborhood, your block, your building, your holler, your neck of the woods, rebuild or strengthen those ties to each other? How do we channel support through information between each other on protecting and defending? We strongly want you to know that this doesn't belong just to the SMA. Your organization or crew can join or run with us or take it and run. This is about building the power and strength of the people's movement across the South. Suzanne of the National Elders Council, also on the governance team, will give you more details. Let's get ready, y'all.
Shafia, what a beautiful introduction and laying out the terrain.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start with the origin story of the task force. The Get Ready task force that we decided to create, the strategy that we decided to create. And that started at our annual meeting that was SMA 11 and just the end of September, not so long ago. So we've been moving fast. So at that, we were rolling along and doing good work and having a good time when the elders suddenly realized that we're not really raising up the threats that are in front of us. And so we called a meeting to talk about this moment of potential political violence and disaster. It wasn't a meeting about who's going to be elected. It was a meeting about the violence that could come. And little did we know, at the very same time we were meeting, Helene was raging through North Carolina. We knew there was a hurricane. We did not know it was one that was devastating and a killer. But in that moment when we met with about 30 or 40 people in the room, high energy, it was a rare moment. We understood also that we're facing a rare moment, in that for once, all of us in this country are facing these threats. We're sharing fears about disaster, fears about political violence. They feel like similar fears everywhere. And what did we say? What an opportunity. Yes, it's scary, it's chilling, but we see this as an opportunity. It doesn't make our blood run cold. It makes it run hot and ready to go. So what do? We rise up and grab the moment. We are the ones, as the feminist movement always said, we are the ones we've been waiting for. It's our day, it's our moment, it's our time. So our move was to create the Get Ready Task Force and strategy. This idea, what was it? To start across the South of community conversations, something that we know how to do with our community, whatever that community looks like. It may be all your buddies. It may be, you know, a group of people that live in the same neighborhood. It may be everybody that's in your organizing project. But whoever community is, any groups of people that connect to one another and care for one another. And so it was to start conversations like, how do we protect ourselves collectively in the face of this kind of violence? And how do we build from there? So that's the opportunity that's sitting there waiting for us. And we said, yes, let's take it. And then we talked to other people and they're saying, yes, let's take this moment. So how do we start? We start a simple thing everyone needs and can create. And this is one of the kind of secrets of it, or one of the obvious things of it, I guess I should say, rather than a secret, in that in this opportunity, everybody needs this thing. So we'll start with something simple, like go bags filled with what you need to survive for 5 days, what you have at the door or in your car. And in that conversation, you can say, what do people think they're seeing out there that might happen? And how do we prepare to care for one another in that, to see that we can get through it? You can give out the ready.gov, which tells how to do those go bags, how to do them for different kinds of disasters, and then talk about not only what it looks like, but how can we create them or help each other create them. And then from that, we'd move in that conversation to what can we do as a community? For example, how will we communicate should the grid go down? I would ask all of you, how many phone numbers do you have in your memory? Not in your phone, but in your memory or on a piece of paper. So there are little things like that, and there are big things. For another example, we would want a map of our people, where they are, what their addresses are, in some way that we can hold it in our hand, a map, so we know where to find them. This is in terms of a climate disaster. This is also in terms of a political disaster. And we learned so much from this, the way Helene hit North Carolina and other states, and how those people within those states responded. And then we might also work, what's our plan if the militias show up? What if they come to town? And this, of course, goes on. But all of this, all of the time, what are we doing? We're building relationships. We're recognizing particular skills and leadership, and we're going to engage those skills, engage that leadership. There's a place for everybody in this. And as Shop said, it's not owned by anyone. It is a strategy to move the South. So what do? We'll work together, connecting our group with other groups doing the same thing. And this is where we begin to gain power and begin to grow. Connection and sharing with other groups. What we'll be doing, we'll move away from the nonprofit competitiveness in this. We'll understand it's not about ownership, it's about sharing. That what we want is collective movement power based in communities. And then this work that we're moving along here doesn't end with the elections. It doesn't end on the inauguration day, and it doesn't end with one climate disaster. We're looking at the future here. We're looking at the longer future. So as it goes along, it will become clear to everybody. We're building a larger base of people connected to each other. How great is that? And then the next recognition will be, yikes, we're building power across the South as we connect with other groups doing this. What are we doing? We are building movement power. We can move together and we can defend ourselves while building a new world. And I want to shift to Steph now to talk to us just a few minutes about really the mechanics of this, how you can join, what we're up to. Take it, Steph.
Thanks, Far and Shafia. That was perfect because you all both called us with Rita Valenti and others into the urgency of the moment, but with the wisdom and the experience of many, many decades of working in times of crisis, and also naming that this is a new moment. We want to offer ways for us to stay connected. We want to offer strategies for ways that we can build. We want to offer ways that we can move political narratives that reduce the confusion and the misinformation and disinformation that we anticipate over these next few weeks. So we want to do that from the ground to the air and across the South. So first, the community readiness team is building on the ground organizing plans. That's all of us. That's in our neighborhoods, that's in our communities and our social networks. We're going to offer organizing Skillshare labs where folks can share ideas, exchange agendas, make it make sense for each of our different conditions and realities. So that community readiness team is going to compile resources, share ideas, share connections, and we'll continue to move together beyond the task force. The political narrative team is a hot team working on how to share the critical stories about what's happening right now and how not just the threats and the political violence that we're facing, but also how communities are resisting and building during these crises. We want to share those narratives about how being connected makes us stronger, that collective action is the solution to a systemic crisis, and these fundamental systems that we're working to dismantle and rebuild as we see fit. But we need to tell that story. So that political narrative feels important in a very noisy time. And then there's a third team that's a regional recon team. We know after Katrina and after all of these crises over the last 20 years, we've got to find ways to track the patterns and incidents of political violence as they increase, as well as other disasters and crises. And we want to support coordination of movement response. So that's another way that we can assess the situation and reflect that back to everybody that's moving on the ground, that's telling these stories, and that's going to stay in relationship to one another. So we have a team with organizational points from every state in the South, talking and briefing each other on the daily for the next 2 weeks to be able to do that assessment and share that back to everyone on this task force. So we want to invite you all to join, share what you're already doing, be a part of this, collaborate, make it stronger, and sign on so that we can stay in touch and stay in relationship. And there's 2 ways to be involved. You can sign on and just receive resources and do the work on the ground. And that's awesome. We want to just be in connection with you all and do that. And if your group wants to do a little bit more, you can indicate on that sign-on form that you want to be part of the task force and the planning to make this happen. And it's short term. The organizing continues, but this task force effort is a bit of that short-term burst that we need right now while everything feels chaotic, so that we can be grounded, we can be steady, we can take care of each other and build that wellness into our community and collective resistance. So there's over these next few weeks, there's going to be opportunities for sharing, reporting incidents that you see, concerns that you see on the ground of political violence, but also ways that you can share stories of resistance, connect and put that online, use the hashtag Get Ready so that we can connect and stay connected over this time. And let's build this collective power together beyond the elections, beyond the inauguration, and into 2025 with the beautiful strategies that we've been building over the last 12 years and certainly over the last 12 months. So those are the pieces. Thanks for putting stuff in the chat. And we hope that folks will bring all your brilliance and your beauty and your ideas to bear, and that we'll do this together. And I'm going to toss back to Nina to get some of those ideas cooking in the breakouts.
Thanks, Steph. Beautiful. All right, y'all. So we've been talking a lot this evening. So want to invite everyone to talk to each other and continue connecting across the region. So we're about to go into breakouts. And in these breakouts, we'll have about 16, a little more, a little less minutes to answer the following questions. It's kind of like a series of questions. So one is just like, how do you see yourself participating in the Get Ready Task Force? And or what are you seeing in your community that connects to this moment and what you've heard so far, whether it be Shafia laying out the political framing and or Suzanne and Steph talking about the Get Ready Task Force coming out of Southern Movement Assembly 11. How are you already working to get your community organized and ready pre-election, post-election, and beyond? What is the work that you're doing in your community to weather these storms and crises that we're experiencing in this time? So again, you'll have about 16 or so minutes. A reminder, so if to the people who need interpretation, please stay in the main room, right? Don't break out or go anywhere. Just stay where you are, and we'll support you and hold you down. But for everyone else, yes, we're about to go into breakouts. There should be facilitators in every breakout, but definitely encourage facilitators and everyone else to take notes, because we're going to come back and we're going to just share out some highlights from our conversations in a bigger group. So much appreciation. And Lou, are we ready for breakouts?
Yeah, we are. And it's great. We have more people than we had facilitators. So some of y'all I'm trusting y'all to facilitate yourselves through this, just so that we have enough people in the room so that people are actually able to talk. But I'm about to I'm about to open all the rooms, and y'all should be good to go. If you need interpretation, please stay in the main room. Thanks.
Thanks, Lou. All right. I'll see y'all back in about 15, 16 minutes. Back. So now in the last 5 minutes of the call, let's hear from some highlights from conversations that people were having. I know I was like in the middle of making a point and got brought back mid sentence. So to my
Me too.
Yeah, it's so bad every time. But yeah, does anybody feel excited to just maybe we can hear from 2 or 3 people about what your group talked about? And feel free to come off mute, or you can also share in the chat. That's cool too.
So, Nina, our group was a range of folks. Let me see: Tennessee, Shenandoah Valley, Alabama, DC, Clarkston, Georgia, and we had a range of feelings and responses, both what people were seeing in their community, as well as first of all, everyone feeling like this task force could be a good thing for the work that they're doing, and it could help support that. The reactions that people were seeing, or things that people were seeing on the ground, was a range from either dead silence, which we said is scary, right? To hear nothing. And then there are other folks who are in places where that there was chatter, there was people talking in very racist and rabid, violent tinged kind of speaking conversations going on an ongoing basis. 2 communities had a good percentage of folks who were from other countries, and both of them were feeling very anxious. Some they've started doing organizing on the ground around looking out and mutual helping with each other, food distribution, or in fact, Sister Glory from Clarkston, Georgia, which is a settlement community, she gave some very simple kinds of tips, safety tips that they were giving out to the young people there. So we had a range of people in 2 or 3 different states, and 2 or 3 different kinds of reactions going on.
Awesome. Thank you, Shafia. I think we might have time for 2 more. If anyone wants to come off, I see some energy in the chat as well.
I can speak for our group. Hi, y'all.
So we had folks from Alabama, Georgia, Arkansas, and Virginia in our group. And our own collective here in Huntsville, Alabama, we're already moving towards having a go bag party or a series of them. So we're prepping and appreciate we've already joined up to be a part of the task force to report back in and have that community collective experience. We also heard from folks in the group that were talking about like being a college student in a more rural space with other college students who are a bit more apathetic, and how do you kind of move people in a direction to you know, in terms of their reactions on the ground and get them prepared. We also had Soledad from Project South was talking about making sure that language needs of community members are being met. And even, you know, talking about cost differences between like generators versus electric boxes. I believe that's what you said. Is that correct? So how could we move to sort of mutual aid or crowdsource those sorts of things for folks? There's a student, a medical student on who was talking about street medic work, and also working with formerly incarcerated folks. We spoke about the sort of devastating stories that came out of Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee after the flooding in the prisons. And let's see. Oh, and then another person who was on the call who was talking about what's already happening within states as we sort of prepare nationally for what could potentially happen around trans rights and reproductive rights, recognizing police presence and surveillance in the spaces where they're doing sort of reproductive justice work in those spaces. And everybody seemed to be very interested in the task force. And I think that's it. If I left anything out, please, anyone jump in.
Thank you so much, Marissa. Shout out Alabama, Marissa, Huntsville crew, Austin, I see y'all. And shout out to the region. So I'm going to move us to close, but it just feels good. I'm seeing resources, calls being shared in the chat. I'm seeing report outs being shared in the chat. And yeah, we are stronger together always. So how can what's next? What are our next steps? How can we take action? Well, you can start tonight. By signing on to the Get Ready Task Force, like Marissa kind of modeled for all of us. If you sign up, you'll get resources and links to connect with other organizers across the South that are thinking about this, that are sharing skills and ideas for building collective power, community readiness plans. We have a Skillshare Lab coming up this Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. So again, sign up, get the information. Let's stay connected. There's another opportunity to keep the conversation going this week. We can just gather our folks, bring together 2 to 3, 5 to 10 people and talk about how we can be better prepared. Not just around what's going to happen next week. Like Steph was saying, you know, this is not simply about the election. This is just about how we can prepare in the face of what's to come. And y'all all know what I mean when I say that, right? So yeah, share this call and the information that you've learned with your folks. And yeah, let's get ready. Next State of the South call is going to be in December. So you all will get the information about that. And the registration form and things will be shared coming up. So appreciate y'all.
Hey, Nina,
yeah.
is there a possibility, or I'm asking Tech, if the sign up form could be left up online for folks to be able to just, you know, where is this? Can it be left up online so folks can just go to it?
It's going to be sent out, and it also has been put in the chat, but we'll put it in the chat again.
And can that be left up some kind of way
What
for
do
a
you
while?
Yeah.
Give folks a chance to click on it.
Yeah, it's going to be up.
Okay, great.
But can
Thank
you send it by email to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely need to. We'll send it by email. So everyone on this call and people who weren't able to join will get that information. And yeah, much love, appreciation. It's good seeing y'all. Thank you so
Bye,
much.
everyone.
Good night.
Lots of
Take
love.
care, everybody.
Take
Bye,
care.
y'all.
Good
Much
night.
love, you all.
Good
Peace.
evening.
Great to
Bye.
see everybody.
Right.
Bye, y'all.
Best of
Good.
luck,
Good
folks.
night.
Good, good,
Be
Yeah.
Love
safe.
you all.
Take care.
Yes.
Thanks,
Take
Nikki.
care.
Really
Hey,
safe.
y'all.
Be
Bye.
safe.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Love to
Bye.
everybody. Bye.
Be safe. Be safe.
Be safe.
Miss Rita, look to hear from me soon.
Thank you,
Wait,
Timothy.
Shafia, call me.
Yes.
More
Call
soon,
me
y'all.
since you're coming to DC.
Yes. I'll call you now.
Bye-bye.
Good seeing you, Stephanie, Nikki, Rita, all of you guys.
Great to
Good
see
seeing you.
you. Thanks for joining.
I wanna
Thanks
take
for
it
that.
over
Thanks for the
here.
interpretation, everybody. Thank you all. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, Mr. Allen, I see you down there, and I didn't get to say hi to Mr. Ness. All good. Awesome, y'all.
Well, Steph, I started my morning with you, and now I'm ending my night with you.
I'll see you in the morning.
I'll see you in the morning. Yeah. I told Steve,
Oh, good. I
all of
Bye,
us
everyone.
done. I was on a call with him earlier today and told him you may be reaching out that we needed some
Texas.
Texas folks. And he
Awesome.
said, absolutely. Reach
Thank
out.
you. Thank you, Michelle. I did. I sent him an email, so that's perfect timing. We're on
Awesome.
it. Great coordination. Thanks,
All
y'all.
right. Sleep well. Bye,
All right.
y'all.
Talk to y'all
Bye,
soon.
y'all.